I was sitting near the principal's office. Minutes felt like hours, but then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. I knew that fool Evans would tell her too much. I just hate him. Damn. What should I do now? I was coming home from school cursing everything. Lame day. Ed is a guy I've liked for a long time and he never even looked at me. He was discussing this League of Legends with the boys all the time. He's an esports player, you see. And he's too busy to hang out with girls. Mom was also late at work again. But never mind. I'll try to fix it. I came home and immediately took out my laptop. A tab with the dating site was already open on it. No, it's not for me. I liked Ed. I was running a page on the dating site on behalf of my mom. I just wanted so much for her to have something in her life besides work. But so far, all of my attempts failed. I direct messaged with several candidates, but they were all strange. To put it mildly, one of them was talking all day about the peculiarities of breeding guinea pigs. I clicked block without the twinge of conscience. But the next guy put me in an even greater stupor. That day, as usual, I was bored in math when suddenly a message from a dating site appeared on my phone. Having nothing better to do, I decided to answer the weirdo straight from school. But in response, I received a whole speech about the fractal similarity of the infinitely eternal. What? I could barely contain my laughter. The teacher even made a remark to me a couple of times. But imagine my surprise when I, returning from school, saw this idiot right in front of our house. Wait, how did he find out our address? He was standing with a huge bouquet of roses and the foil cap on his head. Apparently, he was catching direct signals from space. But then my heart fell to my feet. Mom's car came around the corner. Mom got out of the car and looked at the strange man in a foil hat with bewilderment. Suddenly, this weirdo came up to her, got down on one knee, and said that they were brought together by the goddess Lachesis herself, the patroness of fate. What is he talking about? He himself is some Lachesis. I was dying of shame. Mom just looked at me blankly. Here it seems this patron of cringe began to guess something. He handed my mom his phone with an open page of her profile on a dating site. Mom didn't understand anything for the first couple of seconds. But then she looked up at me and whispered, "Personal data column." No one but you could have known that, Liz. Why? I immediately blushed. Mom, no, you misunderstood everything. After the incident, Mom didn't talk to me for a week, and she also forced me to delete all profiles from dating sites. So how am I going to find her a mate now? In order to somehow distract myself, I decided to start a conversation with Ed at all costs. But then it dawned on me, if he talks about his League of Legends day and night, why shouldn't I discuss it with him? I downloaded the game for myself and sat with it until 6 in the morning. Now I played every night. Homework? I'll put up my grades. But now I could hold a conversation with Ed and his friends. You should have seen his face when I cut into their conversation about the support service. I was in a great mood finally. I had some progress in love life. But suddenly I was called to the principal. My grades were not perfect before, and now they completely dropped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to upset my mom again. I had most trouble with history. The very next day, we were announced that we would have a new teacher in history. Maybe this was my chance. Yeah, as if this new nerd made us learn 5 times more. I only got F's in history and thought with horror about how my mom would find out about all of this. One day, I gathered my classmates at recess. What if we all stage a riot and this arrogant nerd gets fired? I said with a sly smile. But suddenly there was a tense silence. I'm out. Someone suddenly said, I like him. We have never been told about history so coolly before. I agree with you, another responded. Liz, it's bullshit. This teacher is a normal dude. I couldn't believe my ears. When did you start liking cramming some nonsense? I looked at Ed hopefully. But he just looked away. Really? Well, okay, I'll have to cope on my own. But Mr. Evans got out of it every time. I put tags on his seat, interrupted him in class, but all in vain. But when I hid all his notes in the hope that without them, he would finally disgrace himself, he read everything flawlessly from memory. Damn it. I already hated that Mr. Evans. But one day, I was asked to go to the principal. He said he was calling my mom to school. I wanted to warn my mom somehow, but she arrived in half an hour. She even took time off from work for this. I was sitting near the principal's door and trying to eavesdrop on what they were talking about. Mr. Evans was there. He would tell my mom a foul lie. Minutes felt like hours. But then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. We drove all the way home in silence. I wondered what Mom was thinking right now. She didn't say a word all evening. Mom sat silently in the kitchen and cried. It was unbearable. Mommy, I learned all the history, all the names and dates. Just don't be sad. But I did not dare to approach. I couldn't sleep at night. Damn, if it wasn't for that stupid Evans, everything would be fine. Now I just had to take revenge on him. I wouldn't leave him alone until I got him mad. And when he finally got angry, I would record his swearing on a dictaphone and give it to the principal. Dismissal was guaranteed. I barely waited for the end of the lesson. When the last of my classmates left the office, I resolutely approached Mr. Evans. But he just looked at me sadly. Oh, it's you, he mumbled. I just wanted to see you. I didn't know Margaret was your mom. I opened my mouth in surprise. Stop. Margaret? Mr. Evans hesitated. He reluctantly told me that they, it turns out, studied at the same college, dated, and even wanted to get married. Hey, this is some kind of prank, right? But Mr. Evans was absolutely serious. He said he was even offended that Margaret, my mother, found someone else so quickly and even gave birth to a child that is me. I was just numb. My mom never told me about it. In the evening, I was very uncomfortable. Where was she? Why didn't Mom tell me right away that she knew Mr. Evans? Something was not right here. As soon as Mom returned, I immediately began to bombard her with questions. At first, she tried to turn away, but then she looked me straight in the eye. That look made me uneasy. She said, Liz, I didn't want to tell you, but Mr. Evans is your father. What? Is this a joke? Mom, you're crazy. Mom just turned away sadly. No, it just can't be true. My mom quietly began to tell me more. It turns out that Mr. Evans didn't want children then, and Mom didn't agree to an abortion, so she thought the best solution would be just to run away and not ruin his life. Until today, no one else knew who my father really was. My jaw dropped. It turns out that I wanted my own dad to get kicked out of school. But it was he who gave me Fs. You know, Liz, I never stopped loving him. I realized that after I saw him again at school. Mom whispered, well, for some reason, I wanted to cry and run away. But I looked at Mom. She looked even worse. I tried to pull myself together. Gathering my thoughts, I said, I think you need to meet and discuss everything. Mom looked at me thoughtfully. Don't you mind? She asked. I silently shook my head. Hey Mom, hurry up or you'll be late for my graduation. We got into the car. Today is not only a celebration on the occasion of the end of the school year. I'm supposed to be given a diploma for deep knowledge in history. And my dad, Mr. Evans, will give it to me. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm 16 years old. Did something inexplicable happen in your life? Something you thought of? If I tell anyone, they will think I am crazy. And that's exactly what happened to me. One day, my things started to disappear and then appear in a very strange form. Watch this video to the end and find out how missing things drove me crazy. My parents and I never got along. They are very caring. Too caring. Overprotective, to be honest. I always wanted to be free. By the time I was 16, we had reached a compromise. My parents saved up a little and sent me to boarding school. It wasn't exactly rosy. Before leaving, there were a lot of scandals and promises that I would crawl back at the first difficulty. And I swore that the devil himself might come to me in the middle of the night, and it would still be better than my mother reading my diary. Anyway, my new free life began. Although, free was a strong word. The school schedule was even stricter than at home. As for classmates, let's be honest, I had never been popular among my peers. A geek with overprotective parents who couldn't leave the house alone at 16? Do you know that feeling when it seems that everyone around you is secretly laughing at you? That's how I always felt. And the new school wasn't much different. From the first day, I didn't succeed with my classmates. They'd been here almost since kindergarten, and I was new, awkward, and weird. I was joking at random, arguing about little things. Soon, all the conversation stopped as soon as I approached, and the empty seats at the tables in the library and in the dining room disappeared under bags and stacks of books, as if by accident. One girl, Clara, asked to copy my history homework, and I agreed so as not to spoil the relationship. What would you think? We both received a failing grade. Later, I learned from my roommate that this girl was some kind of local queen, and an F became my social death sentence. Now nobody could even talk to me without becoming an outcast. Well, at least there weren't any parents breathing down my neck. Popularity didn't interest me much. It was necessary to catch up with the material so as not to be thrown out of school for failure, to the joy of mom and dad. I kept my nose in my books, and every now and then I bumped into the jams or put my cup past a table. No wonder I didn't notice my things disappearing. I didn't know when it started, but the first thing I noticed was that the pen was missing after a couple of weeks of school. I put it on the table by the window in a completely empty room, turned away for a couple of minutes, and it was gone. It was a hell of a thing, I thought, and I was so surprised that I told my neighbor when she came back. Together, we laughed about it and forgot. But then, my blouse went missing. I immediately thought of the neighbor and asked her to return it. The neighbor swore that she didn't take anything and offered to look for it at school. As if I could undress in the corridor. And the strangest thing, the blouse was found the next day. In my closet, all in lipstick. Which I didn't even use. Which I didn't even have. Our rooms were locked. There was no one to do it except the neighbor. And we had a big fight. In the end, I demanded that we be resettled. I woke up the next day, and my slippers weren't in the room. Oh, they were found when the lacrosse team went out to practice. How could my shoes end up on the field in the grass and mud? I couldn't blame my neighbor. Then what if I went for a walk at night and decided to take off my shoes in the middle of a sports field? Maybe I was sleepwalking because I was overworked at school. I imagined calling my parents and telling them that I was having problems with my head as soon as I ran away from home. No, parents couldn't know for sure. My things kept disappearing. A bra stuck in the shower drain, an algebra textbook that disappeared the day before the test and was found in the morning with the pages smeared with jam and peanut butter like in a sandwich. I tried to tie the locker doors with laces. I tried to take sleeping pills. Things kept disappearing. Eventually, my nervous appearance was noticed by others. The teacher gently talked about the difficulties of adaptation. My classmates were whispering behind my back. A couple of times I heard something like, The ghost didn't like her out of the corner of my ear, and it didn't help my mood. Trying not to show my fear, I asked the librarian if she knew of any legends related to the school. Oh, nothing to worry about. Just a school legend about a vengeful spirit that haunts those it doesn't like to death. A children's story. Ha! Ha ha ha! A children's story stole my things and turned them into God knows what? Do you believe in the supernatural? I always thought I was a materialist, but this is where you start to believe that ghosts are out for your blood. I must have been really freaking out because I thought, why not talk to the spirit directly? So one night, I put salt in the circle, lit the candles, did everything like in the movies, and armed myself with a saucer and a homemade Ouija board. Nothing happened. What was I hoping for? I was so relieved that I slept the rest of the night quietly, right on the floor, and in the morning, I started cleaning up the mess. The commandant of the dorm noticed me with the remains of the candles, and I got a lot of trouble. I scrubbed the wax off the floor under her supervision, and she grumbled that girls like me should not be afraid of ghosts, but of living people. Maniacs, for example. I didn't notice it at the time, but by the evening, my missing dress, cut into ribbons, was neatly laid out on the bed. I looked at it and thought, what if my opponent was flesh and blood? The school building was so old, you never know how many secret passages there were. Yes, there was at least ventilation. Sleep was out of the question. I held my phone in my hand, ready to dial the emergency number as soon as I heard any sound. My imagination pictured my tormentor waiting for the right moment to spring at me from a dark corner, but I wouldn't give up so easily. I closed my eyes at dawn just for a few minutes, and when I opened them, my silver ring was missing from the nightstand. This was the last straw. I burst into tears. I closed the window and locked the front door from the inside, and I didn't go to class. What kind of assignments could I be doing when I was being haunted? Part of me knew that I'd finally gone crazy, but my body wouldn't listen. Even when they began to knock on my door, first the classmates, then the commandant, and finally the principal, I only answered hoarsely that they were all liars and I know that they were sent. Yeah, I wasn't all right. They were going to open the door with the commandant's key, but the commandant couldn't find it. Then they decided to break down the door. I kept getting sleepy. It was the third day, almost without sleep. Then I heard it, my parents' voice. I even thought it was part of a dream until my father started banging on the door. That sound would wake the dead. I had never been more happy to see my pushy, overprotective parents than I was now. I gushed about everything that had happened over the past few weeks, from the neglect of my classmates to the maniac who wanted my blood. The teachers and my parents looked at each other. My scandals, my strange behavior, now this nervous breakdown. I would have thought I was crazy if it wasn't for my damaged things. I couldn't ruin them myself, or could I? Maybe I would have left school and gone straight to the psych ward if it hadn't been for the commandant. First, we heard a squeal, and then we saw her dragging Clara by the ear. It turned out that the commandant found a spare key in her things. Clara was her niece, and this was not the first time she had taken her aunt's keys for her pranks, but the first time she was going to get some. I suggested that she correct the situation by giving me back the ring, and she looked at me with the most naive look in the world. What ring? Was she in denial even now? I was about to throw my fists at her when my mother called out to me. A crow was sitting on the sill of my window. It took some acrobatics to get to her nest in the tree, but there was a ring, a pen, and some other small things. Not just mine. Giving other girls their missing items made me feel like a strange Santa. I went home for the weekend and fixed my mental state with a bubble bath and a huge chocolate cake. And then I came back, because neither ghosts, nor maniacs, nor even more harmful classmates would prevent me from studying. But I will still call my parents every day. Have you ever had school wars? How did they end? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.